At some point in your work as a practitioner, you do begin to realize something, that a good session doesn't always equal real change. And a quiet session does not mean that nothing happened. But because what we're actually looking for is not what happens in the session, it's what changes after the session. And that is where the definition of progress has to shift. Because if we're measuring progress by emotional release or the intensity of how much came up, we're really missing what's actually happening, because real integration is often much more subtle than that. Integration is when the system has processed something to the point where it no longer has to react the same way. Not because the client is trying to respond differently, but because something in their baseline has shifted. And you'll start to hear things like this: I noticed that I didn't react the way I usually do. It came up, but I didn't stay. I didn't have to talk myself out of it this time. And these moments can seem small, but they are not small. They are indicators that the system is reorganizing. And even before, I recognized how deep this work is, going back years, I had clients say those things. So their nervous system was reorganizing. But not all clients have said those things. I'd love for them all to be able to say that. So a client who says, I know why I do this, but I still feel the same way. I can catch it, but I can't stop it. I understand it, but it keeps happening. That's the awareness without the integration. So that's a clue. And that's where many clients stay for way too long. Real integration changes the baseline. So instead of the client managing reactions, controlling behavior, or overriding emotion, they naturally begin to respond differently. They feel different. There's a different experience. It's the same situation with less intensity, and this happens without force. And this is where your role becomes more refined, because now you're not just listening for content, you're tracking. You're tracking changes in reaction, time reduction, in emotional charge, increased presence, the client's ability to stay with themselves. These are the markers, not how deep the session felt. Now, I worked with someone who had a very strong pattern of anxiety in relationships, and they had done years of work. They could explain everything, but they were still reacting the same way. And then something shifted, and it wasn't all dramatic, but it was quiet. And they told me I had the same situation happen, but I didn't spiral. There was no breakthrough moment, no emotional release, no spiral, just no spiral. And that's when I knew that the work had integrated. Integration doesn't always feel profound. It often feels kind of normal. And that's why it gets overlooked, because the nervous system is no longer amplifying the experience. Sometimes practitioners miss this moment, or they move past it too quickly because they're still looking for something bigger. But this is the work. This is what we're actually moving to it. So in your sessions, begin to notice after the session, what changes, what softens, what no longer triggers the same way. And in the session, is the client staying present? Is their system open? Is the work stabilizing as it unfolds? Because integration is not something that we force. It's something that you allow. And when you put all of this together, you start to see the full picture. Why clients don't shift, why emotional release doesn't hold, and where the system reaches its limit, and what real change actually looks like. And this is where your work evolves. This entire process from survival patterns to coherence to integration is what I break down in the book From Survival to Coherence, because once you begin to see these distinctions, you can stop chasing results and start understanding how change actually happens. And for those of you that are working with clients, this is usually the point where your work naturally deepens, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're ready to refine your approach at another level. And that's exactly what I teach inside the training. Thank you for being here. I hope you have seen all 4 videos. Many blessings. Tina Brigitini, and I'll see you in the next video. Remember to like and subscribe.